So I am taking my portfolio capstone class um, at the University of Washington in Bothell, and I think one of the moments that got me to understand why I always sensed a sense of sorrow and despair or incompleteness or hollowness when it came to the education that exists within the secular and non-spiritual framework, that enticed by a sort of a liberal humanistic thought, was when I did the introduction to this class. And what I realized first and foremost, which is what I think a lot of people kind of intuitively know and understand, it's that when it comes to the end goal of schooling, it's to create members of society for the express intent of exclusive productivity in the economy. Like, that is the end goal of schooling, which is to produce people that are able to have a useful, productive output. And that's all people are in these schools. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the things about this capstone class is that it's meant to help you prepare for the next stage of your life, whether it be by trying to help you get your master's degree, help you get a job, or just help you think of how you're going to make money with whatever job you're trying to get. And that's what it is. That's the entire purpose of all the schooling that has been done. And I do find it useful because now I kind of see what is happening on a very wide scale by understanding what it is that the culture and the world at large is trying to do, which is first create productive members of society. Nevertheless, where I'm trying to take this is in realizing that the exclusive goal of all of schooling is to merely create productive members of society, it makes sense why secular schools push out the cultivation of virtue and wisdom. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the trivium, but it's sort of what you would call classic liberal arts. Classic liberal arts is, grammar, rhetoric, and logic, which is the foundation, the trivium, the kind of the trifecta of what it means to pursue a liberal arts understanding of the world. And so the fundamentals are grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and then there's more things to that. But nevertheless, one of the fundamental driving principles of the trivium and understanding grammar, logic, and rhetoric is understanding that the purpose of developing an intellectual framework is to cultivate virtue and wisdom. That is the end goal of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and that is the end goal of all knowledge and information. It's to better understand how to cultivate virtue and wisdom. And so, with that being said, when you don't have an understanding of virtue, or your highest virtue is merely your productive output in society, everything else, as far as what might serve being a proper member of your family, a paternal or a maternal figure in the life of your children, actually doesn't matter, because you're measured merely by the extent to which you're able to be productive in society and not actually cultivate any kind of spiritual formulation. Nevertheless, this is where the daunting and sorrowful aspect of my class really got into play. It's when I was doing the get to know icebreaker activity in my class. So in this activity, we had to give our name, our major, our dream job, and the thing that we're excited to feature on the website of our portfolio. And I realized when I was looking through a lot of these, responses from my classmates, a lot of what people were talking about were things that would seem to fill the void of their instinct to be a paternal and a maternal figure. So, for example, one classmate, their dream job is to be a therapist. And as a side job, they'd want to be a professional interior decorator, which is a very maternal kind of disposition to have, right? To help people, to cultivate virtue in people that they can, so that they can be better members of society, and to sort of, professionally organize and decorate the insides of homes and buildings, etc. What does that sound like? That sounds like a homemaker. That sounds like what a mom would do if they're inclined toward virtue. Another person would be, somebody who goes by they, them pronouns, and it's obvious that they're a girl. But, her, vision isn't really like she's not really confident in it. Like when I'm reading her, what her dream job is, it's really fluid. It's just a general financially stable job. It's just that she just wants to do whatever, right? And it kind of shows that, when it comes to a job, she innately doesn't really want one. When she talked about something that she was proud of, she talked about co-founding the first engineering club at the college. All she could really talk about wasn't even the actual merits of the engineering club, but she only talked about the race and the, sort of, I guess, power dynamics at play when it came to engineering. It was really weird. And I was like, what is this? And then when I looked at, the male or the men in the class, a lot of them were very science-based or engineering-based, right? What does that sound like? It sounds like the innate capacity in men to build things, to create things, to create something special. And what I'm seeing here is in secular schools trying to push out, the virtue of parenthood because they don't understand parenthood. People are trying to fill that void by getting the next best thing, right? Most of the female classmates I have, their dream jobs are psychology professor, teacher, nurse, something like that, journalism. There's one more that I have here, environmental studies. What does that sound like? It sounds like a gardener. It sounds like, something that cultivates a sort of slow, steady desire to see something grow, whereas my male counterparts are, desiring to build something. And so that's the sad thing, is that people are genuinely being brainwashed into thinking that the first and highest principle, not the exclusive, but that the first highest principle upon which they should seek after isn't truth, goodness, or beauty, or even, motherhood or fatherhood. It's their productive output towards society. And that's when I realized that when I was doing this class, it hit me. I'm like, oh, that's why this feels so dry and unnecessary and useless. It's because of these things. It's because, right, the schools are trying to enforce this kind of ideology so that it can override the innate desire all people have to be maternal or paternal figures in the lives of their families, in the lives of their friends, etc. And I think the main reason I wanted to point that out is because, this is the actual danger of secular schools, of public universities. It's not that their ideas are stupid. They are very, very dumb. It's that the damage is when you don't have the capacity to articulate it. It's a bit more sad and deep than I think most people realize. And once you understand that, once you really begin to realize that what this kind of thought leads to, it essentially leads to people prioritizing work over family. It leads to people prioritizing work over truth, goodness, and beauty itself, which is what God is. I have a friend of mine, I think of her example a lot, right? She says her dream is to be, a grandmother with, cookies in a cookie jar. That's genuinely what she wants all in all. And so a lot of our conversations when it comes to what her goal with school, it kind of fluctuates. It doesn't really stay in one place. And I think it's genuinely because she's been taught and kind of had it forced upon her that her most valuable asset is her productive output towards society. I can tell she wants to be a mother. She has a very maternal instinct. She has a very, strong desire to seek after motherhood and cultivate maternal virtue. But she obviously, I don't think she can necessarily articulate that. But I see that in a lot of my coworkers. I see that in a lot of my friends that kind of are trying to fill that maternal and paternal role without actually becoming, right, the embodiment of that maternal or paternal role. And so it leads to a kind of nihilistic, empty, hollow style of life. And it that's the sadness, that's the despair. And so, perhaps in me explaining this, you can kind of better understand the sort of deep, profound damage that secularism, liberalism, and humanism does on people. It's not just promoting idiotic ideology, but it's genuinely doing spiritual damage to people. And it should be eradicated from the culture, as aggressively and as urgently as it possibly can be. Nevertheless, thank you very much for listening. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you always.